technical bit and share the screen. Okay, can everybody see the screen? This is the first bit.
Yeah.
Perfect, wonderful. Okay, so my fantastic colleague has zhuzhed up my presentation for me, which means I sometimes have to click through different things. So if it takes me a little while, then apologies. It's because technology and me. Yes. So this is, as Natasha has said, this is an update. So I'm going to assume a level of knowledge, but equally I am going to be going through the basics to start with. So we always put this disclaimer on, and Natasha and I have done this a number of times. So I will say that the content of these slides was accurate as of the 18th of June, so 2 days ago. And I cannot stress how important that is because things are changing all of the time with this. So we'll recap on the last time that we did this, go through ratings, scoring limiters, and effectively at the end, look at what we learned from the reports that are coming out so far and what providers can do to prepare. So this is what single assessment framework is. So we've got our 5 key questions. They're the same: safe, effective, caring, responsive, well-led. We also have the same ratings in terms of it goes from outstanding to inadequate. But then we've got the new thing. So the Chloe's have gone, and in its place, we have 34 quality statements. We've got 6 new evidence categories. And interestingly, we also have these specific evidence and quality indicators. And as some of you may know, CQC is starting to put out guidance in terms of what that actually looks like on a practical level. So in terms of different sectors, they will be prioritizing different things. Now, CQC has told us that they are continuing ongoing reviews of the inspections as they are at the moment, and that they will be adding to their guidance. Now, we haven't seen any additions to the guidance in terms of specific evidence and quality indicators for at least, I believe, 2 months. But I know that obviously with the large number of inspections that are underway at the moment, we're hoping to see some new guidance in future. So understanding the new terminology, we've got the key questions, obviously, under which we have the quality statements, and they are the we statements. So they're the commitments that providers, commissioners, system leaders should live up to, and they are backed up by the I statements. Now, the we statements plus the I statements are the closest that we get to the old Chloe's and then the ratings characteristics that were underneath them. So it's effectively what a provider needs to be able to meet to demonstrate that they are good or that they are outstanding, for example. They are based on what good would look like. So you need to consider, if you're going for good, you need to be able to demonstrate how you meet the we statements, how you're meeting those I statements. Importantly, of course, if you are going for outstanding, you need to be able to demonstrate how you are exceeding those. We haven't seen that in practice as yet, but that is our recommendation. And again, as I say, we've got some provider insights at the end and what providers can do to prepare. So evidence categories. These are the areas that CQC will focus on when assessing a particular quality statement. Now, they're grouped into 6 categories. So we have people's experiences of their services, feedback from staff and leaders, feedback from partners, observation, processes, and outcomes, although outcomes does not appear in what they are considering under adult social care at the moment. There is, as I said, sector-specific guidance. And interestingly, in that sector-specific guidance, CQC is saying in certain sectors, we will be prioritising different categories. And again, it's really important that you understand where you're coming from, which sector you are in, and therefore which elements of that CQC will be prioritising. So this is how it divides down. You'll notice that under each of the key questions, you have a total possible score. Now, the total possible score is 4, i.e. outstanding, for each of those within each of those key questions underneath each of those quality statements. Now, of course, that would rely on you getting literally 4 out of a 4 for each of those. And that would mean, of course, that you need to be rated under all of those. So we also have new categories. So under caring, we have workforce wellbeing and enablement. So we care about promoting the wellbeing of our staff, and we support and enable them to always deliver person-centered care. Under well-led, we have freedom to speak up. So we create a positive culture where people feel that they could speak up and that their voices will be heard. Now, you may well be thinking with these, well, these were always under the CLOEs, these were always under the ratings characteristics, but they weren't something that you were specifically being rated against, and now you are. Likewise, we have under well-led, a shared direction and culture, and workforce equality, diversity and inclusion. We also have environmental sustainability, and anybody that has been potentially, if you're a geek like me, watching what's coming out from CQC at the moment, environmental sustainability was a new category under which they were going to assess that they really heralded. However, because it effectively came out of the blue, it isn't something that is aligned to any previous CLOE or rating characteristic, that CQC have now said, well, we're not going to be rating against that at the moment. It will be coming out later in 2024.
Hello?
They describe it as any negative impact of our activities on the environment, and we strive to make a positive contribution in reducing it and supporting people to do the same.
Can I ask, sorry, whoever's talking, can I ask you to put mute on, please?
There is a cafe, you know, like the tiger is on the right. On the left, you've got the hiker's rest.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, Nicole.
No problem.
I can mute. Just trying to find. There we go. I've popped her on mute. Sorry about that. Continue, Nicole.
No problem at all. It's interesting in relation to environmental sustainability because they give certain examples. So green and carbon reduction plans and policies, processes for recycling, and staff training in environmental sustainability. However, and it's something that we'll see going forward, because we don't have the CLOEs and we don't have those ratings characteristics, it's very much a what you as a provider can put forward to say we are meeting these ratings characteristics. And of course, with environmental sustainability, if you as a provider are making a real effort to go from, for example, written documentation, physical documentation to a software platform, we definitely see that there's a significant argument in saying, well, actually, significant reduction in paper usage, significant reduction in that kind of physical storage, we can certainly see how that could be argued as environmental sustainability. And this is one of those lessons learned to kind of forward to the end of this webinar that would really say to providers, think outside of the box, because there isn't any written rule at the moment as to what meets each evidence category, what meets each of these characteristics that we were talking about. So whilst you're going through and you're preparing for your inspections, look at how you think you are meeting those we statements and those I statements and the evidence that you have available to you to put forward. Because as I say, CQC hasn't come out with that guidance yet. And the more that providers are actually offering evidence of how they're complying, the more that actually you could be at the very forefront of putting in what that guidance looks like. So we think that environmental sustainability is going to be a really interesting one to watch, albeit, as I say, we don't know exactly when they're going to start rating against it. So this is your overview of the key changes. So from multiple assessment frameworks to the single assessment framework, although I caveat that with, as I said, the fact that CQC is producing sector guidance, which is very interesting because it's literally the opposite of what they said they were going to be doing. in terms of everybody is going to be rated, everybody's going to be inspected on exactly the same level. Well, now they're saying, yes, except that obviously differences apply in different sectors, which is, of course, the situation that we had previously. So previously, it was ongoing monitoring with inspections that were scheduled according to the previous rating. So it was quite a defined calendar. Now it's supposed to be ongoing assessments of quality and risk, with ratings changing more frequently, although I'm sure that there'll be a number of people that are on this chat who have yet to be inspected and, for example, haven't had an inspection for 3 years or 4 years, because we know that there is a significant backlog. Previously, it was evidence gathered only in on-site inspections at a single point in time. Obviously, what CQC used to say was it's a snapshot on the day. Now they are not saying that. They're saying evidence will be gathered at multiple points in time, not just through the inspection, but also through assessments. We'll get onto that in a little bit more detail, but effectively, the assessments are desktop gathering as well. So it's not just them physically being in place. Obviously, judgments and ratings were being used, made using now they will be assigning scores from a narrative inspection report to a short narrative. And again, because we now have those inspections up on the system, we'll be showing you some screenshots in relation to that. Obviously, as we've been saying, you've got the new scoring systems, and we have a wider narrative that is being shared with the public. You've got scores, you've got ratings, and then we believe in future benchmarking against what does the average person in your sector look like compared to what you look like. As I said, we don't just have inspectors on the ground now, we also have assessors. So a sector specialist, I'll pause, I will return to that. Sector specialists accountable for ongoing view of quality, safety and risk, making judgments as part of the assessment. They will be working with the inspectors, i.e. the people on the ground, and the rest of the team to bring evidence together, but it will be the assessors who decide and authorise the regulated activity and support offside evidence collection. Now, the sector specialist accountable for ongoing view of quality, safety and risk, that's the first bullet point. We have been told that there will be one assessor working with many inspectors. So you will have a number of people on the ground, and then you will have one sole person who will be looking at the data that they are pulling from a desktop basis. So the information that they are requesting from you in a digital format. We have been told that at the moment, those assessors are unbelievably overworked, because when they say they've literally put one sector specialist involved with a number of inspectors, we are talking 10, 20, 30 inspectors. So this is one of the reasons that we think that there are some quite significant backlogs at the moment in actually processing from inspection to final report. And I'll be really interested at the end to find out people's experiences of that, because, as I said, we just understand that they are completely overworked. The inspectors are supposed to be sector specialists. But again, when we talk about sector specialists, we all know that if you use the word adult social care, it involves a number of different people. A sector specialist, as we understand it at the moment, would be literally somebody that is a specialist in adult social care, not somebody that is, for example, a specialist specifically in LD in the community. So again, we have people who might not have had the specific training that you would expect them to have, or that they would have previously had coming through the door to you. We would recommend that, obviously in a polite and welcoming way, when people come in to do the inspection, because of course they're prioritising the physical on the ground inspections at the moment, you do ask that person for their background, because, as I say, again, word of mouth, we're receiving some quite interesting information as to what that sector specialist looks like on a practical level when they're coming to you. And that is specifically important the more niche your area is. And very, very important if you're talking about, as I said, for example, learning disabilities or autism, for example, within the community, because they're very different areas. Previously, again, under right support, right care, right culture, there was a real push to make sure that the person that was coming to inspect you did understand that area. We understand that that is a little bit more diffuse now. So again, just making sure that you understand where people are coming from. So how the existing ratings are being pulled across to the new platform. Well, when they start to assess the new services under the new approach, they will need to apply the scores. So for example, if a person was good overall, so that is good in every previous domain, now key question, then they would have a score assigned to them of 3. So the 3 for each of those areas gets pulled across. So in this example, you have 3 across all of the key questions. They don't test in any way. They literally say, these are the key questions. We'll pull across 3 into each of these quality statements. And as a result of that, the person gets these scores. So they can get the maximum of what a 3 would look like. So that would be 75% across the board, and we put that there. Now, interestingly, of course, you'll see that a couple of the what would previously have been under well-led or would have been under effective have slotted into different key questions. So care provision, integration and continuity is now under responsive, but it's previously from well-led. Providing information was from effective, it's now under responsive. Likewise, you'll see workforce wellbeing and enablement was based on well-led, it's now under caring. And you'll see the environmental sustainability isn't being scored at the moment. Now, if you are a good overall under the old domains, that doesn't really mean anything to you because everything just slots in. So the 3 just goes from one place to the other. And so you therefore get good overall. However, what if it's a scenario where you were good in all 4 key questions, but actually you were an RI in well-led? So what does that mean? Well, it means that everything that was a 3, so was a good, transfers across to those new characteristics. And that in terms of anything that was under well-led would now drag across to be a 2. And this would be a practical example of what that looks like. So it doesn't just affect well-led anymore, because as they're being dragged across, workforce wellbeing and enablement, well, now you have all 3s under caring, but because workforce wellbeing has been dragged across from well-led, you get a score of 2 within what would have previously been 3s overall. Likewise, you'll see that under responsive, you now have a 2 that's appeared, and that's care provision, integration and continuity. So it's actually dragging down your scores. And that, of course, means that actually you're getting closer to, without having done anything at all, a lower score to begin with, simply because of the way that they are pulling across your previous scores. We tried to see what this would look like on a real level, just so that people understood the system. So this is a case study. This was a real circumstance that happened. Somebody requires improvement, for example, in SAFE. Now, we have been told, and we'll get to it, that if you are inadequate or requires improvement, then CQC will take that previous domain, now key question, and will absolutely focus on that. So they will be looking at quality statements within that. You were previously requires improvement. Now we're going to inspect you. We've looked at 3 quality statements under the key question of SAFE. We've looked at safeguarding, we've looked at involving people to manage risk, and we've looked at safe and effective staffing. And now, fantastically, of everything that we have inspected, we consider that you are good under those things. Now, provider must think, absolutely fantastic. The feedback we've got is that of everything that we've inspected, we consider you're now good. But what does that look like in practice? What it looks like in practice is that you've got safeguarding 3, good. Involving people to manage risks 3, safe and effective 3. However, of course, it's over a possible score of 32. That is not a sufficient number of quality statements to review to actually drag up your score, because they're still relying on the previous areas. And this is where we have seen the system failing on a number of times, because as you'll see, despite the fact that CQC have come in and said of everything we've inspected under safe, you're good, it doesn't change the score significantly to bring you up to good. So instead, you remain requires improvement because of your previous scores. Now, of course, that wouldn't have happened under the old system, but it does happen under this new system.
Yeah, she's all good.
In terms of the practicality of what the assessment process looks like, we know that CQC will email you to say when assessment is starting, and they may ask for documentation. They are referring to windows. So you have a window of time where CQC will be saying to you, we are asking you for this amount of data. Now, we haven't seen many practical examples of that yet, because obviously it's being rolled out as it is, but we know that they are only going to give you a defined period of time to provide that information, and that information must be uploaded onto the portal. I appreciate everyone's on mute, but there may be some hollow laughter there, because I appreciate that a number of providers have had some issues with the portal, if we can put it that way. We know that CQC should say which quality statements are being assessed, and that there will be a mixture of off-site evidence collection, i.e. data being pulled in through the portal, or actually, as is happening at the moment, being emailed directly to the inspector or the assessor, and obviously on-site, which is your standard on-the-ground inspection. Assessments may include site visits. Now, again, at the moment, CQC's priority is to have those on-the-ground site visits in terms of what the inspection looks like. And that at the moment, we are hearing feedback that there are experts by experience in all of those. Again, I'd be really interested in your feedback afterwards, and that there will be sector specialists in all of those situations, and that CQC will consider before they attend which quality statements and evidence categories they will assess. However, they have discretion to expand the scope in relation to that. Now, that is really interesting, because we have had a number of practical examples of what that looks like, where CQC have come in, they've inspected certain quality statements, certain evidence categories, and actually providers have said, wait, we've done the maths on this, referring to the previous information, the previous page that I shared, and actually we consider that there's no way in which our rating is going to change in any way because of the number of evidence categories that you will be assessing. And therefore, CQC, we're asking you to expand the scope. Now, obviously, you need to be very confident in your provider, in your service, to be able to ask for that. But where you are, please do that maths. Please do make sense. If you are currently requires improvement, for example, and you consider that you would be good, really dive into what quality statements and what evidence categories they are going to be assessing on, and make sure that of those evidence categories, you can achieve enough that the rating can be changed. Now, of course, if you requires improvement, and you definitely don't consider yourself to be inadequate, you really don't have anything to lose, because your pre-populated quality statements, evidence categories are already at a 2. So all you could get is the bump up to 3. And that is really interesting. Again, the maths of going from a requires improvement to an outstanding under the current system is almost impossible, given the number of evidence categories that they are actually rating, but we understand that CQC are looking into that. We're told by CQC that they will be giving feedback to the providers, and they're saying either on an on-site or off-site assessment, if possible, we will give feedback about on-site activity immediately after completing it. Again, word of mouth, what we're hearing is that that is not generally happening, and that you really have to kind of corner your inspectors to say, please, can we have some verbal feedback at this point in time? And please, can we have some written feedback? Now, that written feedback, again, word of mouth, it seems to be really quite delayed from what it is previously. And so a very lawyery piece of advice from us would be, if you've received that verbal feedback, make sure that there's someone that's making a real note of that, and actually email your inspector afterwards and say, thank you very much for the inspection. Please do let me know if you need anything else. We note that from the verbal feedback, you have said X, Y, and Z. And if that isn't disputed, then that is something that you can rely on going forwards. Now, the priority quality statements, we understand that these still hold, but obviously, as the number of inspections are increasing, that may not hold. We have consistently seen that these 5 quality statements, so safeguarding, involving people to manage risks, safe and effective staffing, independence, choice and control, and equity in experiences and outcomes, have appeared in basically every single inspection that we have seen. And so CQC are specifically saying, above anything else, these are the ones that we will always be looking at. So again, looking at what those mean for you, how you are able to demonstrate them, what evidence do you have available, so that when CQC come and they're saying, we are inspecting safe, you can guarantee or almost guarantee that of the quality statements that they will be inspecting against, those 3 are definitely going to be there. So make sure that you have that evidence available to say, we've looked at these quality statements, we've looked at the we statements, we've looked at the I statements, we understand what good looks like. Here, CQC inspector, is my evidence of how this service is meeting these things. It's an easy win because, as I say, we know that they are rating against us at the moment. Here we come to CQC's many comments over the time, and this isn't a criticism of them, it is a new system that's being rolled out. We are going to be learning as we go. So in the CQC board meeting in March 2024, they said, over the last couple of weeks, we've received correspondence from stakeholders who represent providers and from providers themselves, raising various issues around our new assessment approach. All the insight we've received has been collated and shared with leadership colleagues, and we're working through how we can respond to these points and build confidence in our new approach. We'll continue to act on feedback. Positive, however, I will say that, of course, the concerns were being raised from real life examples. So this wasn't somebody like me who's kind of crunching the numbers on a theoretical level. These were people that were experiencing real and significant concerns with inspections that were actually happening and ratings that they had actually received. And that's where you take the theoretical and you take the reassuring words from CQC and you say, yes, but what are you going to do about those hundreds and thousands of providers who have already gone through this process within the teething points? Are you now going to go back and prioritize them for your next set of inspections to say, well, actually, you were being provided, you were effectively our guinea pigs. So not the early adopters who were literally the guinea pigs in that situation, but those that were experiencing the inspections for the first time. We have had no commitment from CQC to say those that were being inspected in November, December, January, February, March will be prioritised once they understand their systems more. And that is a real problem to people that have experienced those concerns. This is really interesting because again in March, And as part of CQC's blog, I would again refer to say to people, really do look at the CQC website, because information is coming out all of the time. Obviously, it's our job to look at it, but as providers, it is really important to understand where CQC is coming from in terms of this. They say, obviously, every service is different, and so the amount of work required to confirm or change a rating will vary depending on the starting position. When carrying out an assessment of a service that is either inadequate or requires improvement, all quality statements under the key question that are rated inadequate or required improvement will be reviewed. Now, that was the commitment in March, and that came directly from that number crunching that I showed earlier, which was, it doesn't matter how good you are, it doesn't matter if you are definitively good. If the number of quality statements that you're being rated against, when the previous information that's being dragged across this requires improvement, will never lead to good. So in Trenholm made a commitment to say, we acknowledge that the maths doesn't work, and so we are now going to ensure that we are rating all of those quality statements. This is something that was committed to. We have not seen it in reality. So again, we would say to all providers, when an inspector comes in, they are supposed to tell you what they are rating against. So they're supposed to tell you which key questions they're going to be inspecting on. They're supposed to tell you what quality statements they are rating against. Make sure you have those in front of you, because if you requires improvement in a particular key question and they have not listed every quality statement that they will be rating against, you will refer to this. Obviously, you'll have a copy of these slides available to you, and you'll be able to say, well, actually, slide 21, your boss literally committed to this. And we know that unless you do that, it doesn't matter what the outcome is of your ratings, because we are never on the maths going to get above requires improvement. And that is not fair. Now, it's not only not fair on you, it's really a derogation of their duties, because the entire point of a CQC inspection is to be able to provide that confidence to the public that the ratings are the most accurate and up to date that they are. Again, we're going to go through detail of that, because it's not 100% clear, if you're a member of the public, what are the old ratings and what are the new ratings. But again, make sure that you empower yourself. So CQC, again, we're going a month later. The Chief Inspector of Adult Social Care and Integrated Care said, it is our intention to review all of the quality statements in a key question where it was previously rated as inadequate or requires improvement. Now, as a lawyer, we find that language interesting, because previously it was when carrying out an assessment that is either inadequate or requires improvement, all of those quality statements will be reviewed, and now it's their intention to do so. It is a slightly watered down version of the language, and language is important, because we would say the big boss committed to 100% of the time, we will always be reviewing all of those quality statements where it's inadequate or requires improvement. We say that you can absolutely hold CQC inspectors to that. So this is what a post-inspection feedback summary looks like. You'll see that it will say who was present, who was supporting them. You will see the number of quality statements that were being assessed. Again, in this scenario, the provider was previously RI overall. And you will see the quality statements that they are assessing against in each of those key questions, and a comment on the evidence found. Now, this is incredibly important, because this is how you are going to benchmark if, for example, you're doing a factual accuracy, what that will look like. So again, who was present, who supported them. You have the date of the feedback given, and again, the type of that feedback. If it is verbal feedback, absolutely, I am not saying that you don't trust your CQC inspectors, but CQC will be making a note of their verbal feedback. Make sure that you will equally have a record of this. and then feedback by quality statement. So what CQC are saying is you should be able to align which quality statement we have rated against and actually which feedback relates to that. Again, when it comes to, for example, challenging that under the factual accuracy, that will be incredibly useful if it is negative or if it is caveated in some way, because you will have that evidence available to you. And again, it's the type of activity, whether it's on site. At the moment, it is because they are trying to get people on the ground. So CQC, as I said, will give a score for each of those evidence categories. And it is important to say that each of those evidence categories, quality statements, are weighted equally. So if they are rating against, inspecting against a quality statement, that quality statement will be as important, will be rated, weighted in exactly the same way as the next quality statement down. And different evidence categories will be updated at different times. So we know, for example, that CQC were coming in, they were rating certain quality statements, and then they were saying, oh, we will be back to do more. Now, again, I'll refer to what Ian Trenholm said. Where you are requires improvement in a particular key question, we are making commitment to rate against all of the quality statements within that key category. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, CQC will choose those evidence categories, they'll determine a score, excuse me, they'll pull together those total scores, and that will be the score for that quality statement. They will then take those into a percentage and then pull that back into a score again. Again, we'll have a practical example of this in a second, and that is the score that will be published. And that is what your key question score is going to be. Again, that is then pulled into a percentage, and that percentage will be published. At this point in time, the limiters will apply, and we will come to what those look like in the next slide. So are there limiters? Well, CQC said initially, no, there won't be. But again, if you actually looked into the maths, it was quite easy to say, yes, there absolutely will be limiters. And the first couple of times that I did this talk with Natasha, we were saying, CQC is saying there aren't going to be limiters, but there absolutely 100% are. And now we have seen those in practice. So if a key question score is in a good range, but there is a score of 1 for one or more of the quality scores, then it is limited to requires improvement. So it literally does not say, it does not matter what the maths does in terms of percentage. If you've got a 1, then the limiter applies. Likewise, if you're in the outstanding range, but there's a score of 1 or 2 for one or more of the quality statement scores, the rating is limited to good. Again, this is incredibly important because, of course, we are looking at a system where they're pulling across previous scores. So if you have a historic score of a 2, for example, it requires improvement, on the rating limiter language, you will never be able to get outstanding under your new inspection. You will only ever be able to go from requires improvement to good, irrelevant of whether everything else was scored as a 4. So everything else was scored as an outstanding. However, CQC say, yes, that is what the maths says, but we can apply our professional judgment if the quality statement score produced does not affect the quality for that topic. So again, we're referring back to this 1, this outlier, but actually we're going to apply our own discretion and say, okay, fine, that's a 1, or fine, that's a 2, or requires improvement. But we acknowledge that's a historic score, or alternatively, we think that that was one quality statement which we legitimately did feel under this new inspection was only requires improvement, but everything else was good, so we're willing to pull it up, or everything else is outstanding, and so we're willing to pull it up. We have not seen that professional judgment applied yet, as far as I'm aware, in a positive manner. If they identify concerns in an inspection, they will use their professional judgment to decide whether to depart from applying their ratings principles. This will be particularly where we need to aggregate our scores that range from inadequate to outstanding. So this is what it looks like in practice. So you have your learning culture score, that's a 1. Irrelevant of the fact that you're under good, so everything else, 3s and 4s, you absolutely should land with a good at the very least. However, you've got a 1 for learning culture. According to the rating limiters principle, you will have to be requires improvement, despite the fact that your actual physical score looks like good. So again, this is how you reach the rating. And in terms of adult social care, we put the information there that CQC is looking at. So in an overall rating of outstanding, you have to have at least 2 questions as outstanding. Again, that relies on them rating them appropriately, identifying the key questions that you want them to focus on, and then looking at those quality statements. In terms of what those single assessment framework reports look like, you will get your link to read it. Now, this will be active in the portal, and it is at the moment, but we know that there are significant issues with the portal, and we'll get onto that. Each key question, when you click on the link, is displayed, and then there's more detail as you click through it, and it is scored out of 100. So in this circumstance, you've got your overall rating, and then you've got your latest assessments published, and you should be able to click on all of these. Now, CQC's updated view of the quality statement, that is here. So it says latest assessment, 11th of November 2023, report published 5th of January 2024, latest review 6th of July 2023, and then you have a link to that. So as a member of the public, you have to understand that what you're looking at on that page does not necessarily reflect what happened in November 2023. You have to actually go through to the assessment report, at which point in time you will see potentially what exactly was rated in November 2023. So you have CQC's view of the service, you have people's experience of the service. Those 2 will always be there on your kind of front page as you go through it. And then you can click on those hyperlink narratives to go through. Now, this is where it becomes interesting, honestly, I promise. So you've got CQC's assessment by quality statement. And here you'll see we have put it with the green circle where these are new. CQC does not delineate against those. All they have is a small line that says, we did not look at this quality statement during the assessment. The score for this quality statement was based on a previous rating. And then again, we've put in red what that score is. It is not immediately obvious if you are looking at this on the page as a member of the public, in my opinion. You really do need to actually look at those things. And especially, of course, if the ones in red are significantly worse than the ones in green, all you have from a member of the public's perspective is this is the report from the 11th of November 2023. So you really need to look into what are the current scores and what aren't. So you have your updated rating, you have the fact that the service scores 75 out of 100 in this area, and this is under effective. So you will see it says effective, updated 11th of November 2023. This service scored 75 out of 100 for this area. It says report from the 11th of November 2023. I don't see how you can mistake this being CQC saying, as of 11th of November 2023, when we inspected, we considered effective to be good. Well, that's not accurate, because each of those scores are from the previous assessment. So they are nothing to do with the November 2023 assessment, because effective was not inspected in November 2023. This is incredibly useful, I think, for providers, because if you do have previously not as good scores as currently, really providing that information either on your website or to the families that are coming to see you and the individuals to say, this is what our new score was, this is what they rated against, this is the snapshot of what it looked like in this example, November 2023. The previous scores, these other scores are from a previous assessment. Obviously, we're working on that. We're always looking to improve. As I said, we've got these CQC focus areas. Don't miss out on the chance to prep for those. And this is how they translate into the practical examples. Again, we have gone through that, but I'm putting that because I understand that the slide's going to be shared with you. So it's useful for you to be able to kind of look at those practical examples, do the maths yourself. We understand the factual accuracy check, albeit it is now run through the portal, is roughly the same. So CQC will email a link to the draft report online. You have 10 working days to respond. Really do the maths on that, because a few times we've had to go back to CQC and say, that isn't actually 10 working days. Weirdly, at one point in time, we got 20 working days. We're not going to disagree with that. Obviously, give our clients as much opportunity as they can possibly get to get this information in, but do check that you genuinely have 10 working days. And a working day is from 9 o'clock in the morning. So if you received your link to your report at 11 o'clock in the morning, that isn't a full working day. So we would always 100% say to providers, the day that you get it is day 0. Day 1 is the day after you have received it, because that is the first full working day. Again, sometimes these limits and deadlines are computer generated, so really just make sure that you have that information. So you enter your comments against the relevant section. It'd be, again, I'd be really interested to see if anybody has actually gone through this process, because you have a word limit, which is absolutely horrendous, and the first person that judicially reviews this, that will get knocked out. But you can also add information as evidence at every point in time. And there is literally nothing to stop you from writing up until the word count and then saying, please see Appendix 1, uploading Appendix 1 as the continuation of your Word document, your PDF, to continue to say how you're challenging that. Because word limiters, when you're trying to say what best practice looks like, is a horrendous way of doing things. And as I say, every single time CQC or Ofsted have attempted to do that in the past, a judicial review has knocked it down and they've reduced it. But we are in the early stages. Ratings process, literally exactly the same as it's always been, but it's just got a slightly different language. Rather than being a rating review, it's a rating process review. You have 15 working days. You have a 500-word limit. There is absolutely nothing that we've seen that would suggest that a rating process review is any more likely to be successful than it had been previously. It was famously incredibly unlikely to be successful. Again, you have to be able to demonstrate that CQC have failed in their processes. It isn't another bite of the cherry in terms of factual accuracy process. As I said, what we've understood so far is that in terms of our early insights, feedback is incredibly important. Making sure that you have evidence of your record keeping, collating your evidence starting early. As I said, we know what CQC are looking at as those 5 priorities. 100% when you're preparing, make sure you have that information available to them. We know that CQC is saying, this is now an opportunity for you to ask for an assessment and ask for an inspection. Do take advantage of that. We have seen that being incredibly popular for certain providers, especially if you're 3-4 years out of having an inspection and you were previously requires improvement. Ask them to come in, have that information. One of the things that happened in a recent case that I had where my client was understandably absolutely livid, really, really positive report, put forward evidence in their factual accuracy challenge to say, hey, hang on a second, you noted some areas of brilliant practice. You noted the fact that we are really innovative and moving forward in our area. In this case, it was the substance misuse sector. Why don't we have any outstandings? We definitely think that under the old ratings characteristics, under the new quality statements, there should have been mention of this. CQC's response was, I would recommend in future sharing any elements of practice with us that you consider outstanding or innovative, so that we can consider whether to conduct an assessment to review these. Not only is that a horrendous statement in terms of, come on, CQC, you really should be looking for all of this information anyway, but it puts an onus on the provider in what we all understand to be incredibly stressful times to go, not only do we want you to do your job, but please can we provide you this additional evidence of outstanding. However, that being the case at the moment, if you consider that you have elements of outstanding and CQC aren't acknowledging that, you need to be empowered. You need to go to them to say, oh, hi, I noticed that you're rating against this quality statement. Please, can I provide you this evidence of outstanding? Because I really think that you CQC inspectors should be considering this. We know that the evidence categories are grouped into these 6 characteristics. So make sure when you're providing that evidence to CQC that you are putting it into each of those 6 categories, just making it easier for yourself, making it easier for them. In terms of preparation, obviously, as I said, making sure that you understand what your feedback looks like, how often, how you demonstrate, how you meet it, how you collate verbal feedback. Again, this is something that we said in talks previously, but if you've had great feedback, for example, from a district nurse, just say to them, hi, is there any chance you can pop that into an email? Or alternatively, sending them an email afterwards, being proactive, saying, it's really great when you came around to see John today. We were really grateful when you said X, Y, and Z. Print it off, put it in your folder. Or environmental sustainability wise, save it down, put it into your virtual folder. We put down a list of things that providers can do to prepare. It's really a summary of basically everything that I've said so far. So please do refer back to that. We understand CQC are still trying to get this new portal to work, not fantastically. Again, if you're doing a factual accuracy challenge, or we have heard rumours, if you are putting notifications on the portal, please screenshot what you're doing. Please also create a Word document or a PDF of what you have said. Now, in terms of factual accuracy, I would think you want to do that anyway, because as I said, with the word count, you just want to keep a written record of everything. And we say, please email that separately to your inspector to say, hi, I just put in this notification, or hi, I just put in this factual accuracy. The reason I would say that is that we've had 3 examples in the last 2 weeks of factual accuracies or notifications being put in. And when they've chased the inspector about those, being told there's nothing on our system. So we know there are glitches with the portal at the moment. Please just make sure that you have that written record. I know that was an awful lot to go through in an hour, so please do refer back to the slides afterwards. Again, Natasha will share those with you.